Proposition 21. Authorize a new car tax to fund state parks and wildlife programs. All right, currently it costs $300 million to fund California's state parks and beaches. Half of that comes from the California General Fund, and the other half comes from park user fees, which include admissions fees, camping fees, and more. Prop 21 aims to add an $18 annual fee to your vehicle registration to help fund state parks and wildlife programs. This money would go into a special trust fund for California parks that would be audited every year by the state auditor and reviewed by a citizens oversight committee. After paying the annual fee, the proposition would then grant each California driver free admission to all state parks. It's slightly more complicated than that, but that's the gist of it. The yes on Prop 21 crowd make the case that we need the car tax because, one, due to state funding, many state parks have been poorly maintained or they've had to cut services or be closed altogether. Prop 21 will eliminate day use admissions to parks and beaches and will keep parks and beaches open, well-maintained, and safe. Two, they say this proposition protects jobs and boosts the economy by keeping park employees employed and by supporting the revenue that California receives from 80 million visits to its state parks each year. Three, this proposition provides funding for wildlife and ocean conservation programs, preserves natural areas, and improves the state's air and water quality. Four, it creates an untouchable and annually audited trust fund for state parks that cannot be siphoned from by politicians for other uses. And lastly, it preserves California's parks for our children and grandchildren. The people that are against Prop 21 and its car tax say that it's all just a big shell game. While politicians can't technically take Prop 21 funds to use for other purposes, they can still take existing funds from the state park budget and then replace them with the money from Prop 21. Those sneaky, wily coyotes. They say it may not be as easy as paying the car tax and then getting an all state parks free. While Prop 21 allows you to enter a state park free, it will still allow for fresh new fees once you get inside the park that could easily make it cost more than ever to visit a state park. Thirdly, they make the point that instead of reducing the size of government to fit these difficult times, this new car tax will allow politicians to play a budget shell game that may not change the condition of the parks. Here's my take on it. Currently, it costs between $5 and $15 a day to enter a state park. So that means you need to go to at least 2, but maybe as many as 4 state parks to recoup your money. Plus, parks can still charge camping fees, touring fees, and any other fees that they can think to charge. Who knows, they could probably charge you a pristine oxygen fee after our $18 freshens up the air and wildlife conservation. And so, they can charge you that. In other words, they can really charge you anything. They can make up the lost admission fee and any number of other fees. Secondly, it forces everyone to pay for entry into the state parks whether or not you use them. I did not go to any state parks in 2009 or 2010. Did you? Do you think you will? Whether you do or not, you will certainly be paying either way. Thirdly, and I'm going to say this a lot, California does not need any more money. We do not have a shortage of money. We have a shortage of discipline, integrity, and competent money managers. But not a shortage of money. We have the 3rd highest taxes in the nation, and we are in the top 10 highest paid workers in the country. Therefore, California receives some of the highest portions of the highest wages in the country, with 3 of the richest counties in the world in its ranks, and we still cannot balance the budget. But naturally, all they need is a little more money to balance the budget. Do it for our lakes and rivers. Do it for the withering trees in California's desperate forestry. Save the endangered leatherback sea turtles. Just a little more tax money and we can do it. Just $18 per year. No! You wild, wasteful, mismanaging loons. There is enough money in the budget already. Do you know, and this is horrible, that this year a senator openly encouraged his political peers to cut $140 million from the park budget so that voters would feel compelled to pass Proposition 21. Why do we need to vote for a state park pass if we're fully funded? That's what he said. This is what we are dealing with. And finally, even if this proposition passes, and I seriously hope it does not, it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning, I'm sure. It's $18 this year, it'll be $25 next year, and $35 after that. California is addicted to taxation. And once you let it put its foot in the door with a new tax, it will bust that door wide open like Michael Moore at a buffet. Do you know that when the payroll tax was first introduced, it was a 2% tax? That's all. Just 2% to improve the quality of our fair society. But by 1962, 2% just wasn't enough. We needed 6%. Then politicians came up with new ideas and new budgetary requirements, and by 1980 it was up to 12.3%. Oh boy, oh boy. By 1990 it was up to 15.3%. But back in the 40s, the politicians told us that just 2% was all that we needed to make a difference. Today, Congress only needs 18 small dollars to pay for our parks. But do you really think that it will be $18 in a couple of years? We don't need any new taxes. We need the legislature to balance the massive budget that they already have. And hey, Congress, I understand. When you try to balance a budget without raising taxes, sometimes you have to make tough decisions. And if that means that 33% of San Francisco city employees don't need to make over $100,000 a year, I understand. I mean, I could make that sacrifice. If you decided maybe we don't need to be paying teachers $68,000 a year to stay home and do nothing because it's impossible to fire a tenured child molesting union teacher, well, it would break my heart, but maybe we'd have to let that teacher go. And if the legislature, instead of passing this proposition, decided that maybe instead they'd use their energy to go out and find that $3.6 billion of welfare money that they somehow lost track of, then, maybe we could pour some of that money into nicer outhouses and barbecues for our state parks. But I have no intention of voting for the state to collect an extra $18 a year from every California driver with one hand as they remove the money from the old state park budget with the other hand, as this proposition would legally allow them to do. No on Proposition 21.